All right. Thank you so much, Sophia. You can start.
You're welcome. Good evening, everybody. Hello, welcome. We are discussing the topic today of discipline and parenting styles for young children. All right. So the reason why we need to understand different parenting styles is so that we can understand the children that we are dealing with. This is part of their background. I just want to apologize for the background sound that you might be hearing. I'm on the road. Unfortunately, I never planned this, but things happen and the show must go on. Let it be a cue for students as well. You could be coming home from work. You could be in the middle of a family gathering. It's never an excuse when we're studying online and through distance learning. We can always find a way to work with the program. All right. So without further ado, discipline and parenting styles for young children. What's our session outcomes? What do we wish to achieve at the end of the session, right? So firstly, we will be able to describe strategies that influence positive parenting amongst families. We will be able to identify ways to foster the development of preschool age children. And lastly, we say we will be able to describe the developmental milestones of preschool age children across all domains of development. So basically, it's just able to give us a little insight and a tool of predictability. When you see a child behaving in a certain manner, you can understand it's because he comes from this type of parenting style, or he comes from that type of background, or he comes from this type of setting where he maybe has 9 siblings that he has to compete all the time for attention. And so you would know to give that child a fair amount of attention. Not that you are favoring the child, but you are understanding that he is constantly competing and you are accommodating him so that he feels seen, acknowledged, and heard. All right. In no way is any of this meant to foster unhealthy situations. Next slide, please. Right. So first of all, we need to understand why children misbehave, right? And we are saying here that one of the reasons could be that they are imitating whatever behaviors they are seeing on TV, from their peers, from their siblings, from their neighbors, from a cousin, anyway. Usually when children are misbehaving, they are imitating bad behavior that was learned somewhere else, or we call it learned behavior. All right. And then the most important one, I think, is the one where they test the limits. Children don't know what the limit is. They don't know what the boundaries are. And so they keep on pushing. That is their jobs in life. I like to say that. It's their jobs in life that they keep on pushing the boundary so that you as the adult, so you as the voice of reason, you step in and you tell them you don't go further than here. Not because you want to be a bully, but you are teaching them boundaries for their own safety, for their own good and well-being. All right. The top paragraph says the more children grow up, the more they develop different kinds of behaviors. Most of the time, teachers don't understand these different kinds of behaviors. So they can be limited to those two. I'm sure there are plenty more subcategories that you can break it down to, but just for us to get a categorization going on in our brain, we say number 1 is imitating behavior. Number 2 is they are testing the limits. All right, misbehaving children. We can go on to our next slide. I, in the meantime, also want to throw in something else. Okay, before I throw in my something else, our slide tells us that they want to show off. And that could be their skills and their abilities, or a new thing that they have learned. Could be another reason why they are misbehaving. And my favorite one that I wanted to throw in was they are unable to process their emotions. So if they are feeling anger and they don't know how to handle that anger within themselves, or how to express that anger to somebody else, or get that point across to the person that what you did really made me angry and it hurt me, they're not able to verbalize it usually. So what would happen is they would start to misbehave. Remember our previous slide said Why do children misbehave? Number one, they are imitating learned bad behavior. Number two, we said they are testing the limits. And now we're saying that they want to show off their skills. And lastly, they are unable to process emotions. And usually these would be what I don't like to term as negative, but you know, those not so good feeling emotions like anger and sadness and embarrassment, humiliation, all of those type of things. So usually when this happens, you will find that the child is misbehaving or is behaving in an unacceptable manner. All right, we go on now to our next slide. And after this next slide, I'm going to ask Tosh to read for us, Tombi. After this slide, you're going to read the next slide. All right. So my slide now says, how can caregivers or teachers deal with misbehaving preschoolers? So number one is we need to have proper communication, right? We need to make them feel like they are able to come to us and give us a message of whatever the problem is with them. All right. Number two, we're saying that we must have very simple to follow and easy rules. Remember the rule in preschool is just like we have a time limit on punishment or what do they call this thing? Time out. Detention, sit in a naughty corner. We say that it must always be in exact proportion to the child's age. So you can't be putting a 2-year-old child in a timeout for 10 minutes. A 2-year-old will go in the timeout for 2 minutes. A 3-year-old, 3 minutes, and so on and so forth, right? So there must be proper communication, simple and easy to follow rules that the child knows that if I bite somebody, that I'm going to go into timeout. Teacher's going to have a conversation with me about not hurting other people because that is not being kind. Finish, clear, end of the story. Especially if that person is younger in age. You don't want to say the rules are that you are not allowed to bite anybody. You are not allowed to insert your teeth in anybody. You are not allowed. Don't make it complicated. Children are not complicated and they are not technical like adults. Adult, you will tell an adult, you cannot commit adultery, thou shalt not commit adultery. Then the adult will do everything besides adultery and say they didn't do anything wrong. For example, children are not like that. They're very simple, easy to understand human beings, and they want to understand life in a very simplified manner. So if you say don't bite, they know anything got to do with my mouth and grabbing onto other people by force, it classifies itself or qualifies itself as biting. I'm not allowed to do that. All right. And then lastly, we're saying that they should enforce routines to make children feel secure in their daily life. All right. So this is something also that I'm very passionate about. I say to my teachers, you cannot expect somebody who has no concept of time to be agreeing with you if you just walk up to them suddenly and tell them, I need you to stop playing with this toy now and I need you to go to toilet. And then I need you to go to wash your hands and then I need you to... First of all, that is too much instructions. One instruction at a time. Remember, we said keep it plain, simple, and easy. All right? And then when we are enforcing these routines, we need to enforce them bit by bit and piece by piece. So the rule is that I need to make the child aware that the routine is changing. So what I will do is I will create an alarm or a signal or a symbol that notifies that child of that upcoming change. All right. So the child will get into a routine where every morning he comes into my class and then he sits on the mat and then we have a little discussion, and he knows after we do that, they go to their tables and they take out their books and they do a pattern or whatever the case may be. And they carry on doing that pattern until such a time that they hear a bell, and that signals to them that they now have to start packing up all their crayons and their prints and their pattern books and all of those type of things. And they need to now start preparing for the next activity, which is we go outside and we play on the jungle gym, right? So when we are enforcing routines, we are enforcing discipline, we are enforcing structure, but most importantly, predictability. Children are misbehaving because they don't know what is coming next. So when we have routines in place, guys, it's very, very important to understand this. When we have routines in place, they are able to predict what is coming next based on what was before that. As adults, we predict what is coming next based on the time that we can read on our watches. These people don't read time from a watch. There's no importance to what o'clock it is. They just know after morning ring, then we go outside to the jungle jump, and after that we wash our hands, and after that we have lunch, and after that we go back inside, and then we play with Play-Doh, or we go to our different corners, right? So enforcing routines is something that needs to be done gradually, and we need to understand at the back of our minds that the end game there is predictability, because that ensures that children feel safe. They are able to tell what is coming next. All right, at this point, I want to say if there are any questions, please do pop it into the little chat box over there, or use the emoji on your profile with the hand up to get my attention, and I will attend to you. We go now to our next slide, which will be read by Ntombi. Ntombi, are you there?
Yes, Appa, I'm on.
All right, you can go ahead and read.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Caregivers should understand that children come from different backgrounds, and that may have an impact on their behavior. They can also assist children understand the consciences of their decisions by selves. This could be done by discussing the outcome of their actions on themselves or those around them. This could be help instill qualities such as empathy and improved decision making.
All right,
Yes,
excellent stuff, Ntombi.
thank you.
So tell me, when you look at at the high
Sophia?
You are breaking up.
highlighted words on the screen, dictating. Which one would you like to choose? Yes, Anya? Can you park that side for me? All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Yes.
can now.
All right. So I was saying, of the two highlighted phrases that are on the screen, the one says different backgrounds and the other one says self
I would like to choose the different backgrounds, Appa.
reflecting, right? I want you to choose between those two phrases and just elaborate a little bit more. Tell me more about what your understanding is of it. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, did you hear what I said?
yes, Appa. About the
Okay,
different
so,
backgrounds.
yeah, okay, tell me more about different backgrounds.
It's like it depends where the kids come from, and you know, some other families, they treat the kids with different hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Tombi. Go ahead.
Yes, they treat the kids with different things. Sometimes they shout them, some of them they hit them. So when they come to the class, they have that anger, they can't concentrate to the class, and then they get aggressive also to other kids. So some of the other
100%.
teachers, they can't understand or to
Yeah,
communicate with them. They must try to understand and communicate with them
100%.
in a good way. Yes,
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you for
yes.
that, Tombi. All right. So just to elaborate there and to clarify what Tombi is saying, is that an explanation to the different backgrounds that children come from. Um,
she takes the example of a child that comes from a household where they use a violent approach, where they use an aggressive approach to handle conflict, to handle difference of opinions and stuff like that. And you find that child behaving in that exact same manner in the classroom. It gives you an understanding as to why the child is behaving in the way that he's behaving. Not only that, you are now able to zone in on that child and exert extra efforts in extending a kind hand to that child when he finds himself in challenges, and hopefully thereby, kind of killing him with kindness, whereby he learns that that there's a more pleasant, there's a different, and there's a more positive way of addressing different of addressing people when we are aroused with negative, so-called negative emotions. All right. And then also self-reflecting has been underlined in this instance. And basically there we give children a time to basically think about why they are acting in the way that they are acting. Now, if we then just go into, the old systems when we were growing up and you just got beaten up. I remember, guys, and I don't know how many others can bear me out on this. I remember having like you can hear from the way I speak, I'm very opinionated. In Afrikaans, we say very bekig, né? So when I used to get a beating from my parents, God bless them, my granny as well, God bless them, they thought they're doing the right thing. I remember sitting them down and having a conversation with them, asking them, how do you expect my mind? Well, I never said it obviously in so many words, right? But the crux of what I was trying to convey to them was, how do you expect me? How do you expect my mind me to do when I have to keep on rubbing, when you are whacking me with the slipper, whacking me with the belt? My concentration is going towards that pain and I'm not able to process anything you are saying to me. So in the same way, if you are humiliating, if you are degrading, if you are screaming at the child because that child is misbehaving, whatever it is that you're screaming at that child is not being heard. Like, why can't you be more kind? Why can't you sit still? Why can't you be quiet? None of that is being received by the child, because the only thing that he is receiving is the one that has the most power, and that is your tone with the undertones of humiliation, anger, and resentment. All right. So we need to be very careful, because as the age-old saying go, they might not remember what you did, what you said, blah, 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 but they will not forget how you made them feel. All right. So we need to create this self-reflection in our children when they misbehave. We need them to sit down and have a conversation with us. We need to create that space, that safe space, that allows them to discuss what they just did without being judgmental, without being critical, without being humiliating. Let's just talk about it. So you slapped her now in the face. Tell teacher why you slapped her in the face. Teacher's not saying it's right, teacher's not saying you're wrong. Teacher wants to understand why you did that. And you'd be surprised, the first 2 3 times they're not going to answer you back, but afterwards they're going to understand, okay, she's not mocking me, she's not ridiculing me, she really wants to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then they're going to tell you, because she stole my Lego block. Okay, so she stole your Lego block, and then that made you feel, and you let them lead with how it made them feel. All right. Um, and as these children grow up, they are able to catch themselves when they're experiencing intense negative emotions. They're able to catch themselves and say, whoa, what am I feeling now? Why am I feeling that way? And hopefully say, what is a better, constructive, positive way of dealing with this emotion that I'm feeling now? It's very deep, guys. It's very deep, and it goes beyond just naughty corners and telling people off and putting people in mind. We are basically working with the mindset of the future generation. And I think a good contribution to that would be to shape it in as much of a healthy fashion as we possibly could. All right. We go on to our next slide now, which I am going to read. And when I'm done, then we're going to ask Nyaratso to read the slide after this one. All right, Nyaratso, please prepare yourself for that. Okay. Ways to prevent behavioral problems. Number 1 says to organize living activities. Make enough space for children to play and move around. Number 2 says keep children hands-on by ensuring they have a lot of activities to play with. Number 3 says provide age-appropriate toys for children. And lastly, we say plan activities that will encourage children to better express their emotions. So how are we going to go about preventing these behavioral problems from coming up in the first place? We need to organize ourselves. You cannot walk into your class with your children at the same time and then decide, inga binga banga boo, this is what we're going to do today. Understand? So any of us who are in an existing school system will know that you get planning that happens for the whole year, planning that happens for the term, planning that happens for the month, planning that happens for the week, and planning that happens for the day and for the hour and so on and so forth, right? Those of us who are not in structured setup environments that are running our own environments, please be aware of this and do as much research and ask for as much help as possible so that you can organize yourself and your environment to ensure that you have less behavioral problems with the children. Because if you look at everything that is listed here, you will see that it's basically out of boredom that the children are misbehaving most of the time, right? There's not enough space. So they're just standing around. And then we understand the devil likes an idle mind. So they start poking the people that have the toys or that have the activities because they also want it. We keep them. Number 2 says that we need to keep them hands-on. They need to be busy all the time, because if they don't get busy with constructive stuff that they can learn from, they're going to get busy fidgeting with people who are trying to learn and distracting them. All right, that's just how the game goes. All right, so that's number 1. The first perspective that we look at on avoiding or preventing behavioral problems is that we need to organize our learning activities, our spaces, and ourselves way ahead of time. All right. We go on to the next slide. Nyaratso, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hi, dear. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I see you have a small
Good.
slide. I'm going to make you read 2 slides, okay, dear? All right, you can go ahead.
Uh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can go ahead.
Okay. Number 2, assess daily programs. Check that children don't sit quietly for too long, as they may become restless. Ensure that basic food and rest is integrated into daily activities. Establish rules. Rules should be simple and easy to understand. Help children understand why rules are implemented. Involve them during the process to make it easier for them to follow. Remind children about the rules throughout their learning activities. Be consistent in maintaining these rules.
Mhm.
Reward good behavior. This will encourage children to do more good deeds. This can be done through words of encouragement, smiling, or nodding.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Nyaratso. Okay, so ways to prevent misbehavior. Number 1, we said, goodness, it just slipped out of my brain now, that we need to organize ourselves, our environments, and our daily programs. Number 2, we need to assess our learning program, see what is working, what isn't working, change up the stuff that is not working, do more of the stuff that is working. Number 3, we're saying that you need to establish rules, pretty much like what we said earlier on in the program. And number 4 is that we need to reward good behavior. You cannot expect children who are not being rewarded for good behavior to carry on behaving in a good manner when the children that are behaving badly are not getting are not being held accountable for that bad behavior. All right, we can go to our next slide now. And we say number 5 is to give children choices. This is done to make children know the difference between good and bad choices, and this can help encourage children to take responsibilities for their actions. All right. So if they made a choice that they want to play with the choo-choo train and they don't want to play with the computer, and they see the children on the computer having lots of fun, next time they will give themselves an opportunity to choose the computer because that would be a better choice. All right. That's just an example over the back of my hand. Number 6, we say ways of preventing misbehavior is supporting children with behavioral problems. You can see some children from the time they come in your class, you already know, this one is going to be the end of me. You know, you have children like myself. I was a child with ADHD, and the approach usually most of the time from adults was very apprehensive, very negative, because obviously such children give you a run for your money, and you have to be on the ball all the time, and they're asking you questions all the time, and they are in every nook and cranny, on top of every table, every desk, and whatever the case may be. You need to study these children. You need to understand what makes them tick. And like I explained to somebody yesterday, I said, when you are able to tap into that potential of that child and use it in a constructive manner, you are able to make that child into a genius. A lot of times we see people with learning disabilities like autism rising and becoming doctors, rising and becoming artists, because somebody recognized that they have a superpower and it just needs to be channeled in the correct manner, and it can manifest itself. All right. So we need to understand that behavioral problems, personality disorders, and all of these things are actually really superpowers that just need to be molded and channeled in the correct manner in order to get the best out of that learner or that child. Right. One thing they also speak about is that you must step in quickly when you notice misbehavior. Don't allow something to carry on for such a long time that it becomes totally out of control. And your whole class goes into disarray. And then we also speak about calming children down when they are experiencing difficult emotions. And lastly, we say explain to them in advance why systems will be changing. Okay, guys, so I know that we always used to go on break at 10 o'clock. That is after we do our molding thing. But for the next 2 days, we need to go at 10:30 because we're going to have inspectors here and they need a little bit more of our time during that morning session. Explain to them. You don't just tell them to shut up, sit quiet, children must be heard and not seen, and you just expect them to pull another half an hour, knowing very well that for 6 months we've been doing it in this way, and now all of a sudden it's going to change with no explanation. I like to compare that to the adult equivalent of your spouse walking in after a long day of work, and all of a sudden she just decides she's not cooking today. But you never told me you're not cooking. I could have bought something on the road. But there is no bread. So now what are we going to do? This is a problem. I was expecting food. We always have food at 6 o'clock. You know, you're causing problems for yourself. If you don't feel like cooking, or if you got pest control in to come and sort out the place, then tell the person, listen, when you're on your way, get some KFC for us because I'm not cooking today because there's pest control happening there. I'm sure that person will appreciate the heads up and help themselves and you to a free meal. Understand? So communication, again, it comes back to that, is key in supporting children with behavioral problems. Okay, we go now to our next slide. Sorry, I just lost it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to read this slide, and when I'm done, our next slide will be read by Shumi. And we'll take it from there. All right, so now we're going to discuss a little bit about the disadvantages very quickly because our time is almost up. I thought it was going to be a short class. Nonetheless, remember earlier I spoke about experiencing corporal punishment myself, which was a norm in the time that I grew up in the 80s. But if anybody asks anybody, guys, I'm only 30 something. Anyway, some of the disadvantages we say: poor self-esteem, behavioral problems. Children tend to become more aggressive, and boy, can I tell you, I have anger issues. Bullying other children. Okay, thank God I didn't do that. They grow fearing their parents, and they lose trust in the parents and caregivers. All of the above, I can tick and I can say, yes, that's the truth. And I'd like to add another one to that thing. They just teach you how to become more scallum when they punish you with physical pain. So it doesn't change the fact that you are now not engaging in certain behaviors because you understand that is detrimental to your character. Like you were caught stealing. For example, like a small child, you stole a lollipop, you were caught stealing. Now, instead of you focusing on why stealing is not good, how it is unfair to other people, how it robs them of their hard-earned cash, and how you can empathize with that person that was looking forward to that lollipop that they worked for 3 hours for. You're not teaching the child empathy. You're just teaching that child that next time that you want to steal, make sure that you get rid of evidence. So they're just teaching you to be scallum in a better way by punishing you because you don't understand the moral, you don't have empathy with the person that you stole from. You actually hate that person more now because they got you in trouble. So you're actually deflecting accountability and responsibility, right? So as a rule in South Africa, for those of us who don't know, we are not allowed to physically harm somebody in an explanation to discipline. Next slide, Shumi, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here.
That was very fast. I like it a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're gonna give my throat a break now, and you're going to read for us maybe the next slide or two. And
Okay,
then
thank you. Okay, so it's says positive discipline strategies. Point 1, logical consequences, natural consequences, time out, redirect the behavior, active listening, rewarding good behavior. Dealing with extreme behavioral problems means that caregivers should take note of what happens before the behavior occurs, who is involved, and what the teacher's response is.
okay. Can we go to the next slide, Pedro? Okay, no, let's go back. Let's go back. All right. So I'm just gonna go through this quickly. The strategies that we can use when they speak about logical consequences, this is pretty much part of the conversation that I spoke about earlier that you're going to have. Instead of beating somebody up and their focus being on where the pain is coming from, you can sit down and you can have a logical conversation with the child if the child is so inclined, that you can say, listen, did you see how she cried when her lollipop was not there because she was expecting it to be there? And so do you understand, because you took it now, you need to go in time out because you did not ask permission for her to take her lollipop, right? So you use a very logical train of thought when you're addressing the child. It works with some children. I was one of those children that it would have worked with, had I been the Lord been so merciful for them to think about all of those things. But anyway, so you can have that conversation with the child using logic, all right? And then natural consequences, for example, you went and you stole his lollipop, and then he came and then he punched you in the face. I'm not saying that what he did was correct. What I'm saying is, because you took his things, it made him angry, and this is what he ended up doing. It was bound to happen. So in order not to get yourself in the line of fire next time, you ask for permission before you take people's things, because sometimes you end up with the wrong people and you're going to get hurt, right? That's a very bad example. I know. I'm probably going to cringe when I hear the recording. But that's basically just a bit to make you understand the difference between logical and natural consequences, right? And having that conversation with children. And then timeout, obviously, I said to everybody earlier that it needs to be according to the child's age. 2-year-old, 2 minutes, 5-year-old, 5 minutes, and so on and so forth. You cannot make it longer than that because the concentration spans are not longer than that. So you are defeating the purpose when you make them sit in the corner staring into blank space when they can't process anything any further. All right. Redirect the behavior. So you will go, no, John, we do not hit people when they do something that we do not like. Yeah, but he took my lollipop. Right? So you need to bring it to his attention that he took your lollipop and you want your lollipop back. All right? We need to redirect the behavior. Or we can say, right, that's enough. All lollipops and everything get put away here now. We are going outside for some fresh air. And you will see children don't really hold grudges. They'll all be happy that they go for fresh air outside. That's another way of redirecting the behavior. And then obviously active listening. Listen to John when John is telling you why he's so mad, why is he so upset. You might come and find out that, his father beat him up into a pulp yesterday, and that's why he does the things that he does as well. All right, and then obviously we spoke about rewarding good behavior. Okay, so we're going to go on to our next slide. I'm going to have to make this very quick. We're just going to speak about the different parenting styles. So there's authoritative, authoritarian, neglectful, overprotective, the one that's in a power struggle, and the one that is permissive. We're just going to go over them quickly for the remainder of the 15 minutes that we have left. Alrighty, next slide, please, Petro. Okay. Let me see. I think there's only one person left. The first person that came into the classroom. Valencia, are you there?
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Valencia. How are you?
Fine, thanks for you.
I'm fine, thank you. Sorry for making you wait last. I know you came first into the classroom, but your name is just at the bottom of the list for some reason. Maybe it's how we come into the classroom. Can you read authoritarian parenting for us, please?
Okay. They used to control business to communicate rules. Rules are made without decision, and children are expected to obey them. Children don't have freedom to expression, or they will be regarded as disrespectful and impolite.
Sophia?
But I'm talking with my thing on mute, sorry. Sorry. Okay. So I was just saying now, Valencia's sound wasn't that good, but the words are on the slide. But just to sum it off, basically, this is a parent who hates either my way or the highway. And the authoritarian parent usually you will find are those people who have the opinion the children must be seen and not heard, and they're not really regarded as fully fledged human beings, and their opinions don't matter. Right, we can go on to our next slide, and this is the permissive parent. Again, now the complete opposite of the authoritarian parent, right? And so this one here, we say that they are allowed freedom, and their household is a democracy, and they have choices, and they support their children in anything, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So this one is now again on the complete opposite spectrum, right? We go on to our third style of parenting, which is in our next slide. And that is the moderate parenting, right? So here there's communication that happens. It's very much like what we were discussing of how we should be in our classroom. That we can talk about things, we can talk about different feelings and how we want them to be received and perceived. And we are allowed to do that, and then they obviously act as empathetic towards us, or empathetic towards the child rather, but also a voice of reason and control, right? So they foster and they nurture independence, but they do it from a place of empathy and love, right? We go now to our next slide, and that tells us our fourth style of parenting. Oh no, sorry. We're speaking now about dealing with children with special needs. Children with special needs should not be excluded from playing with their peers, meaning other children their age or in their generation. They should be given proper support and care. You as an educator, as the adult, sometimes even as the family member, should not fear disability. All right. So where does fear usually come? It comes from the unknown. What do we need to do if we have that in us? I have a family member very close to me. I took her to Little James with me one day to go and show her the wonderful work that Nick and Pedro and Canal and all of these guys are doing there with people with severe disabilities. And she had a physical reaction to it because she couldn't understand how people were being fed through tubes. She couldn't understand how people were deaf, dumb, blind, and everything at one time, and they existed as human beings, and they ate and they slept and they swam and they did all of these wonderful things at Little Gems. And in as much as she respected what she was seeing, the fear of not understanding all of that made her have a physical reaction where she actually became nauseous, right? So what we need to do as adults that work with children of all sorts of diverse backgrounds we're going to come into is we need to familiarize ourselves with the things that we don't know. And how do we know things that we don't know? Is we pick up an element of fear. We have a physical reaction towards that thing. All right, that's just by the sideway. We carry on with the slide and we say, always assume the best and not the worst. Treat their disability and its traits naturally and show them support and understanding when they struggle. So this is for children with special needs, how to handle them, how to deal with them in the class. We can go to our next slide, and just furthermore on that point of dealing with children with special needs. Okay, so we come to the end of our slide. Right, so furthermore on that point with children with special needs, I want us to understand that the stigma that surrounds disability, differently abled people, special needs, whatever you want to call it, whatever politically correct reference you have for it. The stigma that comes from that is usually something that is deep within our community. I know according to some cultures, people born with albinism, there's a story to it, that a myth, from age-old folk that says it's because their forefathers committed some sin or whatever the case may be. If somebody is born blind, then it will be said because their mother and their father did this and did that. And if somebody is born crippled, then it's this and that. So there's this ignorance and the stigma that comes from it. As ECD practitioners, we need to familiarize ourselves on the genetic makeup of these different disabilities so that we can understand. A person with Down syndrome is not a quirky person, is not a retarded person. A person with Down syndrome, something happens in the chromosomes of the mother or the father that makes them multiply each other, and then these people happen to have these features. There are people who are high functioning with these different disabilities, as we call them, and they go on to live respected lives, as we said earlier on. There's autistic people that turn out to be rocket scientists, because they had early intervention, they had early guidance, protections, and nurturing. And if we become that advocate as early practitioners, early childhood development practitioners, if we become the advocate for those children and we identify them at a young age, and instead of alienating them and making them feel less than, and we accentuate the differences and build on that, build on that to create confidence in them from a young age, we have a much better chance of having a beautiful, diversified community that our children are essentially going to be part of when we are no longer there. But if we don't do that, if we don't foster this spirit of acceptance, the spirit of openness to what is different from us, the spirit of diffusing our fears by embracing and learning and understanding that that is what behind the fears is actually ignorance, then we can create great impacts in our communities, even though we ourselves as ECD facilitators and practitioners are regarded as the bottom of the education faculty. The education, what's the word, not faculty? The education fraternity. You know, they look at ECD teachers as Hong Kong teachers. But in actual fact, it starts with us. If that foundation isn't strong in ECD, that child is not going to make it all the way to matric where the big dogs hang out and they graduate to universities and all of this type of things. All right, so that's all from me and my philosophical mood that I'm in today. Are there any questions at this point? Pedro, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Doesn't look like anybody's got anything for me. So from my
Hello?
side, oh, hi.
Sorry, sorry,
Yeah.
Shumi.
Yes, Shumi.
I just wanted to, I have a question actually. Maybe it might be not based on this discussion for tonight, but I just wanted
Okay.
some ideas, or if you know of maybe how to deal with this. So
Sure.
yeah, so in my classroom, I got one child. I don't know, what do you call this? So it's not like she misbehaved or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
what I find a bit weird, or weird, I'm sorry to use words like that, but what she does normally is like every time when I have to step out of the class just to go, let's say, out, outside just few minutes and come back in, she screams like crying, like asking me, why am I leaving the class? Where am I going?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and when I come back, when I get in the class, I talk to her. I'm like, no, I was not going anywhere. I'm not leaving the class. I was just getting something by the printer, and
All
then
right.
I'm back. Then it's also worrying her parents, so they don't know what's going on. So I don't know if you have an idea, like what's going on.
Yeah.
What is
What do
it?
you What do you think it is, Shumi? Sometimes the answers are lying deep within us, but we just never ask ourselves. I want to hear, what do you think it is?
I'm just maybe guessing, like maybe it's the attachment thing. I don't know. Like maybe she might be more attached to me. Like she doesn't want me to just disappear out of her sight.
Yeah.
She just wants me to be there around her. And even that moment when I I step out and come back and find her crying, then she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to leave me. She like following me all the time and asking me, where am I going? Can I come with
Yeah.
you? So I don't know.
Yeah, so you're spot on. But just
Yeah.
to elaborate a little, but the child definitely is showing insecure attachment style, an insecure attachment style, and that is usually rooted in abandonment issues, we say to older people, or in separation anxiety. So what happened probably is that when she got transferred into your care or into whoever's care at some point, she wasn't gently transitioned, if I can say that, right? So it basically came upon her suddenly. She was all of a sudden with a new person, and the person that she had built her whole life around and her primary caregiver was snatched from her all of a sudden. So she most probably has this innate fear now that it's going to happen again. You are now her primary caregiver because you spend majority of the day with her, right? And she probably has this fear that you are going to just move and disappear away from her again, like the previous one or the previous ones before you had done. That could be a possible explanation. And that's why there is separation anxiety there every time you move around. You are welcome to get my number from Pedro, and we can speak a little bit about it after class, or rather tomorrow. Oh, it's 8 o'clock now, Shumi.
Yes,
We're not doing that tonight.
yes.
Yeah, but we can
Oh,
speak
yeah, tomorrow, yeah.
around it, yeah, and explore different strategies that you can try to implement so that she becomes more secure in her attachment and more confident in her attachment to you, and it then transitions into something healthy, because at the moment it is unhealthy, and I'm sure it must be very overwhelming for you as well.
Yes, yeah, because sometimes she screams very like, I even get a fright, like maybe something happened to her before I even go anywhere. I ran back in the class, then just find
Yeah.
that she was like screaming,
How old-
crying, and asking me.
How old is this child?
She's 3, so she's turning 4 in December.
Yeah, no, she's still a baby, shame. All right, no problem. We can speak about it afterwards.
Okay.
But yeah, very interesting. It does fit in with what we're discussing today, which is basically misbehavior. So thank you for that question, throwing that in there, adding a little spice to our class.
Okay, thank you so much. Chat tomorrow.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Shumi.
Thank you.
Okay, Pedro, over to you.
All right, thank you so much. I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you so much, Sophia, for hosting this lovely class, and
You're
I will
welcome.
see everyone in the next class.
Alrighty then, take care. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.